Hi, everyone. It's kind of interesting, but Caroni doesn't seem to be going anywhere in a hurry. And last night, I was at a book club meeting where one of the guys brought over a rum from Caroni, which was bottled by Rum Sponge, which is a brand that comes from Decadent Drinks that in turn is owned by Angus MacRail. Now, Angus is a very interesting chap. He used to have uh, whiskey blog. I think he still does, called I think it's Whiskey Sponge, and does. He's been doing that since about 2012, 2013 or thereabouts. And then somewhere along the line, he decided to start bottling his own whiskeys. And then he moved into rums around 2020. He is the second reviewer on that famed site, Whiskey Fun, run by Serge Valentin. So he's very well known in the whiskey world, somewhat less in the rum world. The Rum Sponge line was started around 2020, and it's always been characterized by single cask bottlings, a couple of blends, and so on. They've got about 35 different editions out there. The one I'm looking at today is number 23, which is a 1998 Caroni 25-year-old that came out about 2 years ago, I think. And that's really quite an interesting rum on a number of different levels. Now, I don't think I really need to go in depth as to the Caroni distillery and its background and its history and how it got to be more famous than it was when it was actually alive. It closed in around 2004. And of course, they exported a bunch of stuff to Europe over the years, which is why you can still find all these independent bottlers putting out the occasional Caroni rum. I think Rum Sponge has got quite a few. The very first one that they did, edition number one, they call it, was actually a Caroni. And there are others in the years that followed, including this one. There are some issues with it that I'm going to get to in a while, but let's just get to the basic production stats. So it was, as I say, 1998 to 2023, 25-year-old. It was aged for 11 to 13 years or so in Trinidad and Tobago, which means probably at Angostora's facilities. There seems to be some kind of discrepancy as to whether it's 11 or 13 or somewhere in between. And the back label of the bottle actually says, yeah, we're not actually sure ourselves, but be that as it may, it did get shipped over to the UK and then finished the rest of its aging in the UK in Scotland. They call it early landed for some reason. I really don't know what that means. The outturn is 250 bottles and it is at 57.1%. That's really quite a nice little midpoint. I think it's been reduced a little bit from whatever the cask was, but for some reason they seem to say that 57.1 is their favorite strength, just like 46% used to be for some of the early indies back in the 2010s, when I started looking at them for the first time. The thing is, the rum is quietly fantastic. Well, yeah. I have to say right up front that it was a bunch of whiskey guys who were trying it, and they all thought it was kind of like the bee's knees as well, just on the nose and then in the taste. It's really quite dry. It's got a sort of like a bitter tannic note right off the bat. It's got notes of caramel, vanilla, chocolates, very strong chocolates, icing, sugar, dates, prunes, that kind of thing. A little bit of dark fruits, not a whole lot. It takes time to open. This is not one of these rums that you're going to be able to get to grips with in anything less than 5-10 minutes if you're going to take it that way. At that point, you start to get things like molasses, you get brown sugar, you get olives, you get, I swear to God, this is true, printer ink. Like when you take a printer cartridge and you kind of like sniff it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Even some iodine, if you really care to think about it deeply enough. And it makes it unusual, but it also makes it quite individual in and of itself. When you taste it, it's as good as I remember. This is a sample, of course, that I filched from Aaron, who brought the bottle along. It was bought at Kensington Wine Market, if you're interested. It's sweet. It's has a bit of bitterness to it. There's some nuts and almonds going past it, prunes, cranberries, peaches, plums. There's not a whole lot of the fusel oils part of it that you tend to think of when you get Caroni, but the fruits are really nice. There's some carambola or star apple or five finger, depending on which country in the Caribbean you are at. It has that sort of like a rich, fruity, tart, acidic taste to it as well, although that kind of goes away after a while. It turns out to be a very smooth and even sipping experience. It's also quite rounded after a while, and it really presents as something that you can sip easily enough and surprisingly soft for all of that. The finish is long and fragrant. It takes its time going down. It's sweet. You get some more molasses. The tannins are always going to be there. Even that iodine doesn't entirely go away, but it is really quite nice. On balance, I got to give this thing about 89, 90 points. It really is that good a rum. And I will stand by that. And the guys didn't know what I scored it, and they didn't know what I thought of it. And they just left me alone to do my thing. There's two things I want to mention about the rum, though, that might give you some pause. First of all, if you are looking for a Caroni profile, something that has those kerosene fusel oil, that kind of, as if there's a petrochemical distillery right next door, you're not going to find that here. So if you're looking for something that distinguishes the Caroni profile and the type, the style, if you will, you're not going to find it here. It just isn't, right? So on the level of being a Caroni, it kind of fails. The other thing I want to mention is the price. Now, Whiskey Sponge and whiskeys tend to be expensive as a matter of course, which is one reason I'm really glad I'm into rums. But here, this thing costs 550 Canadian dollars, which is what, 350, 400 US? That's a lot of money. And for something that is well done, right? I mean, Angus really does like to have his distillate-driven whiskeys, and I think that philosophy has bled over into the rums that he's made, because I've had a few and they're all quite spectacular, if pricey. But you got to ask yourself whether you want to pay that kind of price for one bottle of a distillery, which, although it may be closed, although it may be limited, you do have a lot of independent bottlers who put out distillate from it to this day that is cheaper and almost, or if not better than this. So are you justified in paying that price? Now, my purse can't handle that. I would not have bought it myself unless I was really into funds, which I'm not. Others have different aspects to it. I got a sample. I was able to taste it. I'm really happy that I did, because I think it is a really nice rum. But when you consider that you're not truly getting a Caroni with what you think is a Caroni, and you're paying a lot of money for that privilege, you got to ask yourself whether a sample isn't the best way to go, or whether a taste from somebody else's stocks like I did is probably a better idea. That said, the rum feels that way, but as a rum in and of itself, the damn thing is bloody good. And I think 90 points is a really good score to give to it, and I'm going to stand by that. I think it really is quite nice. It does have that great set of tasting notes. It is rich, it is smooth, it is soft, even for 57.1%. And on that basis, I can't help but recommend it, if, of course, you have the coin to do so. So that's my opinion on the rum, and I think it's time to stop here. I'm trying to keep these things short, as I said. But if you have any comments on whether you've tasted it, whether you think you should, or where can I get it, by all means, give me a shout, and I'll do what I can to help you out. RumX, of course, is a good resource as usual. And the website for Rum Sponge does, or Whiskey Sponge does, have some tasting notes and details on it. Not enough as far as I'm concerned, but the label is also quite good. So that's where I'll leave it for today. And I hope you guys have a really, really nice day. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.